Sir, we will start in another 5 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
The people still joining in, sir. There are 36.
Can we start?
Okay. Hello everyone. Good evening. So thank you so much for joining the second session of PrivSec Spotlight CISO and DPO Series, organized by the Cybersecurity Center of Excellence, Telangana. Uh, Before we begin, I would like to invite Dr. Sriram Birdavalu, CEO of Cybersecurity Center of Excellence, to address the gathering.
Yes, just give me a moment. I'm trying to get this. Hello, everyone. So good to have you here with us, Susheel Walia, who is quite a stalwart in the field. And can you all hear me, first of all? Hello? Yeah. Sai Prakash, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Yeah, we
Yes,
can hear
yes.
you.
Yes. People are still joining in, so that's very well and good. And we have with us a stalwart like Susheel Walia, who has long experience in this space. He's the CISO, okay, of Advanced Auto Parts, a famous company, GCC, who is here based in Hyderabad. He's here in Hyderabad and based in USA. So essentially, today is going to talk on this very interesting area of security strategy to adopt to dynamic digital environments. How do you do that? So, in this rapidly evolving world, especially in the wake of pandemic, where it is work from home, work from anywhere, and with the cloud in place, 5G in place, and mobility in place, and also we have a whole slew of technologies coming in like IoT, we have AI, and we have blockchain and several other technologies which are coming, cloud and mobile dominating. So with this dynamic environment and the application ecosystem has simply exploded, and platformization of many services are happening. So with this in mind, we'll have to just keep up with this people joining in. All right. So with this in mind, how does one adapt? How does one bring cyber resiliency to this ecosystem? So whichever sector we touch, for example, financial sector, BFSI sector, okay, there is a big transformation happening with fintech space and all these things. Manufacturing sector, the IT, IoT, and all which are there. Healthcare sector. So ever increasing complexity of medical devices as well as you have online portals, the way the whole ecosystem of the uh, healthcare, pharma, the whole insurance sector, all of which are related to healthcare, you see that uh, the way the patient care is there, or the medical records are being generated, or the touch points which the insurer has, all of these things bring together a very complex and dynamic ecosystem. So in that vein, we see that what are the three reasons why people adopt to digitalization or why digitalization is happening. The first one is the experience. That means you want a better experience out of the whole thing. If you take Uber and all that, you see that you have far better experience than, of course, either phoning the cab company or waving hand on the road or whatever. The second, so the first is experience. The second one is efficiency. That means things faster, speedier, and with lesser effort. So that is efficiency and with lesser cost. And the third one is the possibilities. There are so many new possibilities, right? Innovation, transformation, and so on of organizations. New business models will keep coming up. So with all of this in mind, I mean, in things that we would never even thought of before, like cryptocurrency or CBDC and so on. So relative to this ecosystem which is evolving in terms of technology and business models, we have the regulatory landscape also shaping up very rapidly. Your privacy laws coming up, You have CERT guidelines, CERT-in guidelines coming in. And of course, we have a whole slew of standards, industry standards and regulations coming up, like GDPR, like NISA has released some 6 standards in the past 3 years on IoT security alone. Okay. And 137 countries in the world are adopting privacy laws. So with this in mind, Susheel will really dwell upon with his experience and knowledge on how do we shape, how does cyber resilience play a part, or how it's a very foundational thing. How do we bring about cyber resilience in this rapidly evolving dynamic digital landscape? So over to you, Susheel.
Thank you, Dr. Sriram. Thanks for giving me this opportunity. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, sir. You are.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
Okay, I'll quickly share my screen. Okay. So I hope you can see the slides.
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay, awesome. So guys, let's start. So yeah, first of all, good afternoon, everyone. And I'm Susheel Walia. Like I work as Deputy CISO and Senior Director Information Security here at Advanced Auto Parts India. And in addition, I am also leading the enterprise identity access management and the security engineering functions here in Advanced Auto Parts. So today we are going to talk about how CISO typically defines the security strategy in the current dynamic world where everything around us in terms of the people, talent, threats, technology, infrastructure, business requirements has become so dynamic. So we'll briefly we'll be going through how the overall digital world is changing, how the overall the business and technology landscape is changing, how is it impacting information security at a high level, what are the mitigation uh, factors, and plus also will help you walk through a series of strategies which usually CISOs adopt or should adopt in this evolving world. So to start with, basically from a more on a lighter note in terms of what if any of you want to be ambitious and as a future career you want to get into CISO's role. So typically based on my experience, my last around 24 years of experience in the industry working with different leaders in management positions as well as CISO positions, what I've typically seen are these traits. So certainly they have to be high pressure problem solvers. So CISOs are always under, I would say, they need to be alert. They're always under high pressure in terms of protecting the organization with minimal budget, lot of pressure from the CEO, from the board of directors, meeting the stakeholder expectations, pushback from the people, then a lot of, I would say, unwanted attention from the hackers and the overall ecosystem. So they're always under high pressure. They have to be people's people. So that means basically they need to interact with stakeholders a lot, not only in terms of their at an executive level, but also at their peer level, at at the bottommost team member level in terms of to gauge what is the security awareness across in the organization, what are the requirements of application architects or functional consultants, what is that the business leaders would like to prioritize, and how would they help the CISO in terms of meeting his requirements to secure the organization. And then he needs to be globally aware. Like I said, everything within the IT world, I think, changes every 7 days. So, what is happening across on the technology world? What are the new threats that are coming in? What are the new security tools that are available in the market? What all solutions people are deploying in order to protect their respective organizations? What are the best practices that are followed? How are the overall security frameworks and the controls evolving? What kind of training needs are for not only the security team but also of the general employees in the organization? What are the regulatory requirements changing? Like, I think at least in the last 2 years, we can see there are a lot of new regulatory requirements that have come up. Then the CISOs need to be metric minded, right? Unless if you can't measure what you have achieved, you cannot demonstrate that, right? So it's very important that he's metric minded so that he should be able to study the trends in the data. There would be many threats which get unnoticed, but looking at the metrics, looking at the data, you should be able to make it. You should be able to identify how healthy are your security tools and investments in terms of securing the organization and all. And certainly, CISOs need to be introspective, right? I mean, what you started with, you may not end up with the same thing. Like in the, you need to, on multiple toll gates, you need to introspect in terms of are you walking on the right path? Are you making the right investments? Are you focusing on the right controls? Are you driving the security initiatives in the right way to meet the business requirements? Are you overdoing it or underdoing any security strategy may put the organization at risk. So you should always be introspective around that, and hence need to be business minded. End of the day, CISO's responsibility is not only to protect the organization, but also to enable the organization to grow at the determined speed at which the stakeholders expect, and able to support the business in that growth path, in and kind of removing all the obstacles related to security threats. So he need to understand the business, what exactly the business requirements are, and what are the threat landscapes related to that, and then meet those expectations. And certainly, with organizations becoming more and more globalized, I would say across the globe, you have different sites, locations, you work with multiple geography, not only customers, but even vendors, your regulatory requirements. So CISO's job is never a 9 to 5 kind of a job. Like need to be 24/7 available to meet your stakeholder interaction engagements, as well as to respond to any security requirement that may come in. So yeah, I would say certainly. They need a lot of energy and determination to succeed in that role. So how's the overall evolution around the digital world happening, right? I think many studies say that the overall digital transformation market is already around 3 trillion US dollars and continue to evolve to around 13 trillion by 2032. So in 1990s, I remember when I was in college, I think uh, IT meant only those mainframes, banking systems mostly, and payment systems, and mostly the kind of demand for IT resources was around the mainframe support and some of those COBOL level programming and all. As we progressed to 2000 decade, I think the focus moved towards more automation around how can the manual efforts that we are putting in, how can they be automated using the different programming languages. And now, if you see the emerging technologies around artificial intelligence, data analytics, cloud computing, your IoTs, so I think the overall technology has made kind of a tremendous evolution, and thereby we will go through in subsequent slides in terms of how that has impacted the overall industry. So if you look at from a retail perspective, I think we all know where the Amazons and the other kind of retail organizations like Walmart and all they started, they were basically brick and mortar stores. And now they are evolved into more of e-commerce platforms, providing online shopping and seamless experience to purchase those products either through mobile or through your online portals, or even in the store. It is kind of a seamless shopping, right? You can simply pick the products that you want and just walk out, and automatically the system detects who you are, what you have bought, and automatically sends the invoices to you. Similarly, on the banking side, I don't remember when was the last time I had visited a branch as such. All your banking requirements happen on tip of your mobile phone or on just a call away. And then there are so many financial wallet applications that are there, so hardly you need to carry cash. Similarly, on the healthcare, I mean, same thing. Unless there is a serious emergency, you don't go to a doctor in person. Nowadays, you have online digital appointment facility. On within 5 minutes, I can get an appointment and talk to a MD certified doctor in any specialization, who may be sitting anywhere in the country today. And those are all experienced doctors. So and plus also there's a lot of remote patient monitoring gadgets that are being kind of invented. EduTech especially, I think it has gone through a lot of revolution. We have seen a lot of those EduTech apps which are available to not only to the corporate professionals, but also to the school and the college students. And I think post-COVID, we have seen a new trend starting of homeschooling, right? I mean, there are many parents who prefer their kids to study at home using some of those edutech solutions or home tutoring or even online classes using the latest in the technology. And similarly, on the manufacturing side, I would say there's a lot of innovation that has happened over the IoT devices, how the overall data can be analyzed to identify what are the gaps, how they can speed up the overall machine line processing, what is that they can automate, how they can make sure that the quality of all the products produced are consistent in nature. So I think that's where I think the overall technology has involved, the business has involved, all the stakeholder requirements are kind of always changing. their demands are changing, and the types of business disruptions are changing, right? So I think considering all of these, and then there is a heightened level of media attention, right? In addition to the print media, you need to you are exposed to the faster social media platform, plus also I mean the dependency around the third party ecosystem has increased. I mean, and hence there are the overall digital risk landscape has also, I would say, changed, wherein we have new risks that are coming in. So, for example, though in many areas, though with the technology advancements, the corporates are investing in the new technologies, but the older legacy technologies cannot be replaced at the same pace because of some business and technology limitations, right? Overall, the risk around the third parties have increased. We have seen with SolarWinds and Snowflake now. I mean, there are a lot of corporates that are under threat because of our product being vulnerable. And then there are, and same way, the laws and regulations are also kind of actively updating the requirements, and it's really difficult for the industry to meet those requirements and comply with them. And hence your brand and reputation is always at risk in terms of any kind of data breach, any attack, any kind of business disruption. So overall, it's all impacting the information security needs. So when I started my career, I think mostly the type of risks that we used to talk were mostly around information privacy or yeah, domain hijacking. I don't know how many of us today's professionals are aware of even domain hijacking. There's hardly people focus on that, because that's almost in the least of the criteria for a CISO today. But over the years, it evolved into like and during those days, firewall and antivirus were the only two talked about your security tool requirements. But now you have a vast security tools because of the diverse nature of the security threats that we have in order to meet all the DLP risks, any kind of phishing or social engineering risks, the ransomware attacks, uh, your uh, your cloud data is at risk, your SaaS platforms need to be protected. Your public storage vaults need to be protected. So the overall security landscape has evolved. So like Dr. Shriram suggested, COVID brought in a completely different um, change in the dimension how we used to work, and hence added additional security threats related to allowing uh, for corporates to allow their employees to work from home in terms of the remote access. So earlier, remote access was only related to vendors, contractors, some kind of remote technical support kind of people. But now today, if you see, there's a large percentage of population who works remotely. So I think that's where COVID brought in a lot of changes. At the same time, it increased the overall cyber crimes because it was easier to breach the systems at at home, because no one protects their Wi-Fi routers at home. I would say more than 90% of the time, they are set to default settings. And then they're not enough. We don't make any investments in any kind of security tools and all at a personal level. So it's easier to breach through that kind of a channel, and hence the risks increase, and that forced organizations to think from a immediate short-term controls that are required, and the long-term controls that may be required with this changing landscape. And hence there was a lot of focus around the access control, the remote access, from both network as well as from an IAM point of view, in terms of how do we secure those accesses when people are connecting remotely. How do we kind of sensitize the employees on what are the best practices if they are connecting from home? How do we deploy controls like anytime VPN so that the systems are not exposed? And then going through a detailed enterprise risk management process to identify any further risks, and coming up with a long-term strategy to continue to allow remote access and at the same time protect their systems. Okay. So if you see, these are the stakeholders which usually any security professional kind of goes through, wherein if you think like board of directors, I think they are more focused around how do we make sure that the organization is in compliance to all the regulatory requirements. They have a very zero tolerance level in terms of any non-compliances or from a security incident perspective. And then they are heavily involved um, in the overall security strategy, sponsorship, as well as sponsorship from a budget planning and funding perspective. So I think that's where it's important for CISO to understand the business requirements and able to transparently uh, uh, lay down all the security priorities, and help the board understand and approve in terms of what is the security strategy that we should be adopting more from a long-term perspective. The management executives, basically who the CISO reports to or is heavily influenced, either the CEO, the governance and the risk officer, or the CFO. They are kind of and plus all the maybe the CTOs and all who are responsible for the infrastructure and the applications and maintenance. Like they influence a lot around the security strategy in terms of they're always they want quick results, and they are also concerned about the security awareness around the organization. And then at the same time, they do counter the CISO in terms of how can we wisely spend the security budget, which is kind of approved, in making the right tools and right investments, hiring the right resources, and all. So that is something which is very important to get the top management buy-in to proceed with the security strategy. The technology owners, basically the infrastructure owners and the app owners, uh, they are always under pressure to focus on their objectives for faster deployments of the infrastructure and the code, and they would want the security or the change management approvals as soon as possible. And at the same time, there'll be a lot of pushback that we come across in terms of the security tool implementation or control implementation in terms of how, for example, if we want to control local admin privileges, or if we want to control any kind of admin privileges in the environment, there would be kind of multiple approvals that are required, and we need to make sure that all the technology risks are properly assessed and approved rather than getting under flow and kind of approving them, prioritizing the business need. And at the same time, technology teams, they would like to innovate a lot, working with at an industry level what they see to meet with the industry requirements and speed, right? So there you come across a lot of requirements of around new technologies. So today, like for example, AI, generative AI, right? I mean, there are very few security tools that have been evolved to meet the generative AI requirements in terms of securing the data, securing the environment. But the technology teams are always would like to kind of build some sandbox environment and try to kind of test it on how it can help in their technology requirements. Security vendors, they are kind of there are new tools evolving every day, and I think that's where the CISO needs to continuously talk to vendors, understand what are the new products coming, how they can help in securing their organizations, how um, how can they invest in multiple tools, but at the same time, they need to be integrated with each other so that all the data can be correlated, analyzed, and add more value to the business. Many times, the security tool licensing and the total cost of ownership is not so easy. It is complex. I mean, there are many vendors who for whom one license is not equal to one unit. It is some internal formula that they use in terms of either in terms of most of the time one license may be around 3 units. So it's always difficult to understand what are the it's not standardized across the security vendors. So to understand what is the licensing model, what is the total cost of ownership, there might be a lot of hidden costs. So how do we kind of understand what exactly the spend would be to the leadership? I think that's very much important. And then with all these stakeholders, obviously, even the cyber hackers are also evolving. They have easy access to the hacking tools today. Even uh, a school student can easily access these tools and initiate a bot campaign, and then also the overall time taken to exploit any vulnerability has reduced over the last years because of all the automation available, tools accessibility. They're able to exploit even the complex vulnerabilities, which was very difficult to exploit earlier. Now, because of the availability of the technology, it is helping them in that process. And then and that's where across all the stakeholders, the most important would be your own security team. How do you make sure that your security team has the required skill sets in order to meet the latest threats in the environment, to understand the new security tools and technologies? How do they adapt themselves to be a quick learner in order to support this kind of a dynamic landscape? And then your resources are always short, right? They're always in demand. So how do you make sure that you do a continuous talent development at the same time able to retain your key and critical resources to continue to secure the environment. Under these challenges, I think that's where the security strategy is under continuous evolvement. And it's long, and I hope the Q&A is at the end. But yeah, so when under all this dynamic environment, when a CISO has to lay down a security strategy at a high level, these are the parameters, or I would say framework around which he functions. So like I mentioned, like he needs to work with the board of directors and the management and have a clear security vision and a roadmap on how the priorities will be focused. And accordingly, then he works around the InfoSec budget in terms of what is the budget available. He needs to understand from the board based on their priority how much budget is available, and accordingly he kind of prioritizes and then lays out in terms of what, in order to take care of all the threats, what are the type of resources I need in terms of people, process, and technology. And accordingly, he kind of designs his org structure. And when he does that, it's not easier to, I wouldn't say it is not possible, but it's not easier to kind of meet the expectations of the security strategy with just internal resources. Because of the changing environment, changing dynamics, always you will have certain level of skill gap, certain level of lesser stringent timelines available, and there'll be a lot of pressure in terms of meeting requirements, and hence you will always need a third party involved, either to assist you in terms of the contract resources or through a managed service providers, plus also in terms of the overall threat landscape. Third party plays a major role in terms of not only from a threat perspective, but also in terms of mitigating the threat as well. And then the CISO, along with his team, needs to identify what are those security requirements, do RFPs for security tools, come up with different operational procedures, and all. And then in order to keep the kind of lights on process, what are the metrics that are required in order to measure the effectiveness of the overall program. And then as when we start from the vision and roadmap, I think throughout the process, we need to make sure that we have focus around innovation in terms of as we are defining the process, how can we automate things? How can we do things differently? Is there a better way of doing it? Is there a faster way of doing it? Or is it a more secure way of doing things? So that innovation always has to be at the back of your mind in order to meet the speed as well as to reduce the cost, and also to make sure that you have the latest investments and tools to meet the new threats that we have. So going back to the vision and roadmap, how does a CISO build a vision and a roadmap for his organization, right? I mean, that's where like he starts with understanding the business environment in terms of who are all the stakeholders, what exactly does the business do, what is priority for them, what is critical for them, what are the potential threats that that can be exploited, and then so basically do a overall threat assessment, then do a kind of a risk assessment around to basically to talk to the senior leadership, the board of directors, and understand what is their risk appetite. This is very important. Like they need to clearly understand in terms of what is the threshold where a certain risk is accepted and where the risks need to be mitigated, because the the threat landscape and the risk appetite of the organization would define the overall security strategy, including the budget and the resources that they have to invest. An organization with a very low risk appetite, like a BFSI, will always have a higher, I would say, security budget than manufacturing or maybe retail, where the risk appetite might not be as low, but at least it would be a little higher compared to be a BFSI. But I would say over the last 10 years, this differentiation is slowly closing on, and the overall risk appetite, irrespective of the enterprise, is almost coming into the same closer range because of the level of exposure, because of the various cyber attacks that have happened, because the importance around the data protection, because of the new the data privacy laws coming into the picture, plus increase in the overall, I would say, social awareness around the security risks. So, I mean, irrespective of the industry, more or less risk appetite is retained at the same level. And once we have the risk appetite, like I mentioned, I think that's where the overall prioritization is decided based on the and short-term and a long-term budget is defined, and now the overall org structure is defined in terms of the how the resources, what type of resources we need in order to execute this security strategy with the available budget. When you have this in place, I think that's where there are multiple, I would say, security frameworks. I would say it's not necessary that we always have follow a particular framework, not mandatory, but it is always helpful. If you have a baseline against which you can measure uh, uh, your uh, your requirements, your investments, the controls that you have, the metrics that you measure. If they're against a particular baseline, it becomes easier for a CISO or a security team to assess where they are in terms of in comparison with the industry, with the standard, plus also to demonstrate it to their executive leadership, justifying the investments that they are making in terms of where exactly they are. You can use any framework, NIST, ISO, COVID, all are good. There's no preference of one over the other. It is more depending on uh, organization's personal preference, their region, their type of business, and which framework would be more feasible for them to adopt. And then defining the security strategy, drafting the budget, and getting the required executive support for that. I mean, executive support for security, it is very important that a top-down approach is followed. You need to take the executive approval. Not only when I say executive, almost leaders of all the business verticals, because end of the day, their support is very much required in order to meet the overall security strategy, implementing the strategy, allocating the right level of resources in their respective teams to kind of meet the security mandate. And then, like I mentioned earlier, metrics. right? Once you have defined your strategy, your roadmap, you need to have certain set of metrics, the KPIs and the KRIs, which you can measure yourself in terms of how well you're performing. So that's very important. And moving to the security budget. So how do you design a security budget, right? So I think like I mentioned earlier, you do a maturity assessment in terms of where does your current organization stand in terms of what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what are your potential areas of where you of exposure, and then identify your assets. What are your assets inventory? Unless you know what and where are your assets, it's highly impossible to protect them. Classify them. What are critical, what are prod, what are non-prod, which assets have critical PII data, which assets have kind of proprietary impact. Do that risk assessment, and then prioritize in terms of which assets or which data you would like to protect first in the short term, immediately, where the risk exposure may be higher. And then accordingly, you kind of lay out a overall prioritization schedule. And as you do that, always the priority would be around your incident response and recovery, right? Your overall roadmap, it might be a multi-year roadmap to kind of, by the time you implement all the controls, your threat landscape changes, and again, you will have a new roadmap to work on. So it is a multi-year program, but hackers are evolving, like we mentioned, and security incidents can happen at any time. So while you work around implementing controls to protect the organization, you should always be prepared in case a security incident happens. What is required in order to immediate containment, immediate response, and immediate remediation and recovery from that incident to kind of minimize the overall impact to the organization. So you should always prioritize your budget allocation on the incident response and recovery. It may be related to the tools that are required, people that are required, or maybe buying a cyber insurance and protecting against the financial impact. And then once you have those budgets defined, you need to have a real-time finance management. Means you should be monitoring your budget and expense almost on a regular basis so that you're able to, number one, obviously, you need to meet and work within those budget requirements. But at the same time, you need to make sure that because the environment is dynamic evolving, your budget spend is also dynamic many a times. So you need to make sure that you are flexible enough to kind of replace a particular tool or get in a new control in place or hire a new skill set on a short-term basis. So you should always have that monitoring in place in terms of awareness of how much budget you have, how much you can spend today, how much you need to for the overall long-term project. Okay, so now you have done your vision roadmap. You have your security budget design. The next step would be to plan your resources, right? So you need to document what resources you require, what skills you required in order to meet the overall security roadmap. What is the overall project schedule? Do we need to complete all the projects this year? No, we can't do that. So what is the plan for the next 3 years, and at what stages we would need to hire or procure these resources? What is the overall skill gap that you have if you have to meet the security roadmap? What are the new skills that you need to add and then decide whether you need to hire as a employee or you want to outsource and get a third party contractor. Now, these decisions depend a lot more on how much of knowledge you would like to retain internal to the organization in terms of the intellectual property. And at the same time, how based on the availability of the resources to hire as an employee. Because usually for certain niche skills, they might be like highly priced and you would not want to hire a full-time employee. And it is easier to get a third-party contractor so that you can immediately start you immediately start the work. And then you also need to uh, evaluate for what controls it makes sense to engage a managed service provider, a third-party provider, so that you can focus on the strategy, security roadmap, and less bothered about the transactional or the operational aspects of it. It is again, it depends on industry to industry. Many industries like BFSI, their preference is to insource all the talent, whereas many other companies or the industries they prefer to keep the strategic resources, basically L3 and the architects in-house, whereas the L1, L2 they prefer to kind of outsource it to managed service provider. or or also it also depends on the stage of the project that they are in or in the overall security roadmap maturity. In the initial stages, you will see there's a lot of reliance on vendor support, but over a period of time, as the maturity of the organization increases, the internal talent is prioritized more, and gradually we move those that support structure from an managed services to an internal employee pool. And then you need to have a continuous, I would say, monitoring and control plans around the resource utilization and the workload because of the dynamic nature of the work, new threats, new tools, new technology investments. The overall workload is quite dynamic, so you will have to be flexible in terms of your overall resource structure on how soon you can scale up and how soon you can ramp down based on your overall resource utilization and the workloads, so that one is you meet the you are doing your job with efficiency and effectiveness, and at the same time you are not worried about the employee burnout. Uh, this is more from the resource planning perspective. From a third-party management, like I mentioned, like it's very important. So we need to make sure that there is a proper third-party vendor management system in the organization. But mostly from a risk management perspective, you need to have a clear inventory of the vendor along with their risk classification based on the type of access they have, what is the exact infrastructure access they have, what type of data they process, do they store data on their premises, what kind of skill sets they come in, are they do they work from office ODCs or do they work remote from their respective homes? So there has to be a risk classification based on that. Again, type of the business support that they provide need to make sure that the contracts are reviewed and making sure that all the data security and the information security requirements are included in the contract, and your enterprise is protected with the respective kind of contract requirements. Uh, the information security policies that you draft, you need to make sure that the controls related to third-party access and any usage of IT systems by the third party, or we using a third-party system, all those controls should be included in the security policies that are drafted. And then you need to come up with a continuous monitoring and reporting system wherein the overall third-party engagement, their access, their controls, their SOC reports are kind of reviewed on a periodic basis. There's a continuous monitoring so that threats can be detected and responded on time. There has to be quite well coordination with the security team of the third party so that information can be shared and we can improve the overall the security posture of that organization as well. All that, how do we do it? Is by investing in the right security tools and building some robust operational procedures. So I think that's where like the threat landscape assessment is always the starting point for every requirement over here. Based on the threats and the technology landscape, I think that's where the security architecture team or the tool engineering team, they come up with kind of what are the short-term and the long-term security tool requirements following the overall defense in-depth strategy in terms of what are the tools that are required to secure our perimeter, what are the tools that are required in order to secure our applications, what are the tools that are required in order to protect our endpoints, what are the tools that are required in order to protect our data, prevent any data loss, what are the tools that are required to detect any security event anomaly. So it's important that all these tools are kind of identified. And again, and then come up with a procurement planning and an expense management. Because of the complexity of the IT environment that you have in your enterprise and the limited budget, budget is always limited. I think only once in my career, I just heard one of the CEOs giving a blanket check to the CISO that go, you have a blanket check, go and spend wisely. But I would like to have a zero tolerance from a security compliance perspective of or any security incident perspective. And practically it was followed. But mostly across the industry, budget is always limited for a CISO. So it's not possible always to get the best products available in the market. I think a lot of times you need to adapt, you need to customize your requirements, you need to decide what is the best product may not be the right tool because it might not be compatible with your internal technology platforms. So it's important that there is a detailed POC done based on the budget, or the right tool stack is decided, and also the timing on uh, you have limited resources in terms of your people as well. You cannot buy 10 tools at the same time and then implement all the 10 tools at the same time because you still have limited people and same set of people who may be supporting multiple tools. So depending on your project schedule, you need to come up with a procurement plan on when exactly you would like to start paying for that tool and start deploying that tool into your environment. And once you have that prioritized, you need to come up with an overall security framework and an architecture, right? I mean, there's no point if you have 10 tools and all those 10 tools are not talking to each other. It increases your administrative overhead. Plus, makes your job of uh, uh, detecting a threat and at the same time remediating the threat seamlessly more difficult. So it is always recommended that whatever tools that are procured, we look at their compatibility and their integration methodology across not only your technology platforms, but also on how one security tool talks to another security tool seamlessly. and you need to kind of build that architecture and then kind of plan the resources in terms of assigning them for those respective controls, tools, come up with an implementation and operation strategy, right? One is certainly you will have a project management team who would be helping you in terms of the tool deployment and all. But at the same time, uh, the moment you implement a tool, it will start generating logs, right? It would start reading data from systems across the technology. So you will need an operational workforce who is looking at that data. Some of it can be automated, but still you will need operational resources. So you need to have an operational strategy in place in terms of reviewing those, doing the initial triage, escalating it, tracking those remediations to closure, your escalation mechanisms in place, and overall monitoring and reporting of all the KPIs and KRIs related to those tools and the type of data that they generate. All this leads to metrics and measurement. So when you are selling your security strategy to your board of directors and the executives, the first question that will come is, what is your success criteria? What is that you claim you can achieve in certain period with a certain budget, where we can call your strategy as a success? And hence, it's important that you have metrics aligned to your security strategy, which makes your job easier to kind of demonstrate success. At the same time, ask for the required budget and the resources to further enhance the program. Based on the overall threat landscape, you need to identify what are your key risk indicators. What are based on the tools and technology that you have invested, you need to come up with what are your KPIs, what are your key performance indicators, KRIs in terms of risks, how many failed logins, how many successful attempts into the network, how many MFA failures. When it comes to KPI, it is more around the health and the performance of your system in terms of what is the availability percentage of your IAM tools. What are the percentage of logs that are successfully captured by your SIM solutions? What are the percentage of DDoS attempts that you were able to block? So, I mean, one dimension of metric is the KRIs, where you show how well you are doing in order to to detecting and mitigating the risks, and KPIs in terms of how well your tools are performing and able to meet the internal stakeholder requirements. And then identify based on your risk assessment, come up with a KPI and a KRI thresholds. So what is the baseline again above which I should be alarmed, or there should be alerts or notifications, and what should be my typical red, amber, green dashboard based on, and kind of then define your dashboards, your scorecards. To one is to demonstrate to the executives how well you are doing as a security program, and also for your security operations to identify any key risks, any key trends, looking at the data, and come up with those control health and effectiveness. This is my last slide, folks. So like I mentioned earlier at the start, innovation is the key for the success of overall information security program. And I think and it is important because, like I mentioned, the cyber attacks are evolving. You have a lot of advanced cyber attacks nowadays. Ransomware is on the rise. There are like corporates, even cyber criminals have become global. There are syndicates that are formed. Um, And then the supply chain attacks, like the SolarWinds and all, they have become a little more nastier. So earlier it was only one, the organization which used to be compromised, only that organization used to be impacted. But now, with these supply chain attacks, one organization, one product gets breached. As a result, all its customers get impacted. And then there is always a serious shortage of information security resources. And hence, it is important that for a CISO to focus on how he can automate. One is in terms of threat management perspective, and second is in terms of how do we make the end user experience more easier. So when it comes to identity and access management, the new concepts like your passwordless authentication, that helps users to kind of log in seamlessly rather than remembering a complex long passwords, and where you always have the risk that that end user would be writing that on a piece of paper or in an Excel sheet. And hence, one is certainly from an end user experience perspective, and second, like I mentioned, is how do we automate so that the manual dependency is reduced in terms of detecting the threats and acting on those threats. With a lot of new emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, you're seeing a lot of these concepts being provided as enhanced functionality features on the security tools, whether it is EDR or the next gen SIEM solutions. There are a lot of those tools available which have started providing services with AI ML capability. The cybersecurity standards are evolving. I think NIST came up with their new framework recently to meet the evolving digital environment. Cloud computing is still, I would say, a hot topic today, wherein how do we protect the data and the privacy concerns when we are hosting our data or systems onto the existing cloud environment. So I think that's where, in order to meet these challenges, a limited budget, limited resource, evolving technology, evolving cyber attacks, I think that's where innovation plays a key role so that the organizations are better prepared. Yeah, with this is end of my presentation. So I think we are now open for questions. CCO team, if you could help moderate.
Yes, sir. So I request all the participants, like if you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat, or else if you want to, directly unmute yourself and speak, please raise your hand so that I'll unmute you.
I think we have a question from Mohammed on the.
Yes, sir. In the meantime, like Chakri, I have,
the-
allowed your mic.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you very much, the Cybersecurity Center of Excellence, to conduct such a good seminar. And thanks to Dr. Sriram sir, he is always bringing up the new initiatives to spread the awareness. And thanks, Susheel sir, for a wonderful session, a good insight as a CISO, because I am from digital work. We are into IT asset management, service management, and security management, especially into cybersecurity. So we understand the value of and the pain of the CISOs actually looking into the organization security. So when you said that assets have to be really tracked, or we need to know what are the IT assets, let it be hardware or a software. So do you think the ITAM comes first or the security comes first? That's my first question. And the second question is coming to the point of the development of any application on a SaaS platform. I think it's a good practice to have a security testing before they actually even go into production. So what do you say about that? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chakri. I think they're really good question. So I would say in terms of the prioritization, I would say, obviously, many organizations, I would say, fail to discover their assets accurately. I think earlier it was a challenge because it was mostly manual. But I think currently we have a lot of advanced tools available wherein there is automated asset discovery possible. So both in the cloud as well as on-prem environment. So I think one is you can certainly invest on those tools, but you have a more I would say robust internal processes linked to your procurement and enablement so that the assets are proactively identified and added into your asset inventory. But yes, so both I would say asset discovery and item, I would say both go hand in hand. Only thing is implementing any new security tool becomes difficult if you're delayed and the technology IT people have already kind of invested and started deploying or using those new technologies. And when security comes in late, it is always challenging. I would say it is always recommended that you start investing in the required security controls and the tools much ahead in the design stage itself, so that it is more of a transparent process between both the app and IT owners and the security control owners. On your second question, I would say security testing. I think gone are the ages where we used to follow the waterfall model of testing only just before going to the production, right? I think both from a application as well as from an infrastructure deployment perspective, now it's more around the continuous testing mechanisms that are available today. So that same thing, testing starts from the design stage itself. It is inbuilt into the deployment and the change and release tools so that it is more automated, lesser requirement of security resources to tell the developers what vulnerabilities they have into the system. So they can assess and test their code themselves, find out the vulnerabilities themselves, fix it, and then release it to the production. So it's more of a shift left strategy right now across the industry.
Yeah, thank you so much for that clear explanation. And what do you think that is the in-house IT team is capable enough to have a full security, or do you also need a third party or a network audit or application security tested by a third party vendor?
See, it is more around the the budget, internal dynamics, complexity of the environment, right? End of the day, the resources are the same, right? I mean, from a talent and skill perspective, you can hire the same resources in-house as well. But your overall project priority, your budget availability, your complexity of the environment, there are multiple factors that play a role in deciding what is the exact resource structure you would want to build. And usually it is hybrid. It's a mix of internal team and external managed service providers.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shil sir. Thank you, Sriram sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So we have few questions in the chat. How do emerging technologies like AI and blockchain impact security strategies?
I would say in both ways, right? One is they have certainly uh, widened and increased the exposure. So, for example, if I take an example of generative AI, from a data protection perspective, if I'm keeping the data inside my data center without exposing it to the internet, we used to feel that that's sufficient. uh, and because mostly the risk was around an unidentified or a malicious actor accessing that data, which we can protect by multiple perimeter controls. So the focus was more around the network and the identity controls. Now with generative AI coming in, the focus has drastically not shifted, but added to the data classification and data protection controls as well. Now we are talking about how do we make sure that we tokenize the data or mask the data, or how do we identify the data, what can go into your LLM platform and what can go, what shouldn't go. How do we protect that data? So that shift has happened now in terms of more around the data protection requirements. And when you think of uh, a positive side of it, I would say the same generative AI capabilities, like I mentioned, are being used in some of the security tools as well. So it is easier for us to build a query in a SIM solution using a natural language rather than writing a script to get the desired set of records if it is a kind of a complex SIM solution. So I would say with it rests, we also have some benefits coming from these emerging technologies.
Yes, sir. We have one more question. How can companies ensure they are prepared for unknown or emerging threats?
I would say collaboration and investing in the right tools, right? I mean, first, like I mentioned, you need to be aware of what type of threats are important to your organization, and then invest on them. Invest on the right SIM solutions, invest on the right cyber threat intel tools. You need to kind of be on a ever research on your overall technology landscape, because the threats or the exposure changes every day. You have a lot of 0 days coming in. So how do you make sure that you have internal processes strengthened enough so that you can take care of those vulnerabilities at the earliest without any exploitation? So it will a lot depend on how well you're aware of your environment and how well you are taking the input from the overall threat intel community.
Thank you, sir. We have one more question from Takir. How can organizations the need for robust security with the demand for agility and speed in digital transformation? I guess, Takir, the question is incomplete, maybe.
I think the question is around how does the organizations meet the robust security requirements if they have to deal with the ever evolving the dynamic digital environment. So yes, like I mentioned, the environment will always be evolving. It is not fixed. There are new technologies, new threats, new security tools that keep coming in, and hence you need to be agile in terms of deciding. For example, you need to decide for what type of controls you would like to make a long-term investment, like a 3-year contract versus a 1-year contract, so that it gives you that flexibility that if you want to replace tool A with tool B, which becomes more enhanced in the next 1 year, you should be able to do it. You have to design your infrastructure or overall architecture in such a way that it becomes tool agnostic. It should be easier for you to kind of redeploy a tool based on the changing environments. You need to focus on continuous learning and skill development of your team on how do you make sure that your resources are trained for the new emerging threats and the security tools requirement, right? You need to have a partnership with multiple organizations in not only in your industry, but also with the vendor ecosystem, the startup ecosystem on and learn from them in terms of they would have a wider exposure and access to the information. So learn from them on what are the new threats coming in and how you need to prepare your organization to meet those requirements. I hope I have answered.
Yes, sir. I request all the participants, like if you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat, or else you can please raise your hand so that we'll unmute you.
I can see there are a few questions on the Q&A. So Rohit is
Just a
asking
second.
around how can companies stay ahead of regulatory changes and ensure they are compliant with
Compliant with
security
security strategies.
strategies. Yeah, I think it is the same, guys. I think fortunately, regulatory changes are slower than the technology changes. But yeah, I think that's the investment you need to do on your overall GRC teams in terms of governance, risk, and compliance on how best they are defining the security policies to meet all the applied regulatory requirements and any of your security framework. Most of the time, it meets multiple requirements. So, and how do you make sure that you build in an internal overall incident response system and security awareness campaign in order to meet those requirements. So I think the more agile you are, I think it becomes more easier. I think I've already responded to Abdul around the
Yes,
emerging threats.
that is already answered, sir.
Any other questions?
We'll wait for 2 more minutes, sir. Like if we have any questions, we'll take them, else we'll wind up the session. I guess that's it, sir. So
Okay, I would like to thank Dr. Sriram for giving this opportunity for sharing my experiences with all of you. So yeah, thanks a lot. And yeah, if you have any further discussion or questions, feel free to message me on LinkedIn. I'll be glad to have a conversation with you. Thanks, everyone.
So thank you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights today with all our community. So thank you so much for all the participants who joined us today and making this session successful. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.